What's going on, Jeromes? So Minnesota Vikings general manager adofo-mensah is absolutely cooking, making deals and getting the Vikings back into the first round, acquiring the 23rd overall pick from the Texans. So 2 first-round picks. Vikings have that ammunition to move up into the stratosphere to get their future franchise quarterback. Or, frankly, if deals fall through and the Vikings don't want to give it too much value, sticking and picking wouldn't be the end of the world, but that's something that we'll talk about later. But of course, opinions are like a-holes. Everyone's got one. And ESPN's Bill Barnwell. Barnwell, respect, is one of the grand poobahs of... So he blends like the analytics as well as, like old school football writing. One of my favorite writers, he was a little bit critical of the Vikings, though. Did up an analysis of some of the trades that's been going around, and this is what he said about the Vikings trade. By the way, this is like 10,000 words. This is a lot. Vikings trade up to land another first-round pick, blah, blah, blah. It's fun to see a plan come together in real time. The Vikings who just lost Kirk Cousins in free agency. Oh, they lost him as opposed to, we don't need him. Certainly seemed to be hatching a move up the draft board for a quarterback after they struck a deal with the Texans. GM adofo-mensah has typically traded down and amassed extra draft capital in his deals, but since he got the job in 2022. But Friday's deal has the Vikings going the other way, perhaps in a move for J. McCarthy, the number 4 quarterback in what is considered a great draft class. Continue. I still believe the Vikings are in the market for a quarterback, but there are a few reasons why this move seems curious. Let's start with the trade process itself. They already are somewhere between 20 and 50% premium to land the first round pick from the Texans. And of course, here's what happens. So you get bogged down by a couple of specific trade charts, and we do this as fans too. Like we look at one trade chart, that backs up our biases. Like, aha, we got him. From the Texans, they'll presumably need to pay another premium to move up again into the top 5. Why didn't they just send those picks directly to the Patriots, Cardinals, or Chargers, who would be getting more value by taking the second-round picks per every draft chart than they would by landing the number 23 overall selection instead? Part of it could be, I think that part of it is the Vikings have themselves built in a solid floor where, hey, if they can't pull off a trade, they still have 2 first-round picks. And frankly, it's a deal that the Vikings may have made anyways with the Texans to get back into the back end of the first round. And also, the whole thing about it is like, I'm sure that Kwesi has already had preliminary discussions with the Patriots, the Cardinals, and the Chargers, and maybe even the Commies. And part of it what has to be, hey, not hypothetically, we actually do have 2 first-round picks. As we said, that is what sets the Vikings apart. Yes, the Giants have 6, but the Giants can only deal in future first-rounders past that. But the Vikings have tangible cash money, 11 and 23, and the value of those picks, the immediate value of those picks does matter. And future first round picks are great, but it could be number 1 like the Bears got from the Panthers last year. It could be 32, and it's going to be face. That's right. Also, the logical argument would be the Vikings knew their trading partner preferred the 23rd pick and got that selection to facilitate a deal. Fair enough. But if that's the case, where's the second trade? Well, the whole thing about it is like, hey, maybe the Vikings made that trade, and did you expect it to be boom, 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 done? I think if it's a trade into the top 3, I think it'll get done. Frankly, it may get done over the weekend. I'm so excited. I'm so verklempt. But if it's trade to 4 or 5, that may be contingent on the board. So we may even have to wait weeks until the draft comes around. So I think that, frankly, I think Kwesi probably has a couple of contingent deals in his back pocket. And it could be in their court as well, because I'm sure that Washington and the Patriots and the Cardinals and the Chargers, I'm sure they've had conversation with Joe Shane of the Giants as well. So it's a part where, the Vikings have done their part, and maybe all those other teams are looking at the Giants like, hey, what's your best last offer? And they're taking time to mull things over because there's no rush. There's nothing that is going to occur literally until draft night, right? So I think it's a spot where the Vikings could secure the deal, but I don't think it necessarily has to be bang bang. Like if this happens and this happens, and like we said, the Vikings and Kwesi have already built themselves in a very decent floor if a trade doesn't go down, because they still have 11 and 23 and can still secure the quarterback of the future, whether at 11 or 23. It could be Knicks, could be Penix, etc. Blah, 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 blah. If the Vikings were ready to make that first deal, they should have made these swaps in one fell swoop, like the Eagles, 49ers did with a series of trades in 2021 that ended up with Trey Lance. Maybe they're just like, hey, it didn't work out with Trey Lance, so we're just going to take a little bit of time. We're going to catch our breath. Now, the other side of the deal move up. The teams picking from 3 to 5 has all the leverage and can demand more if so inclined. They were going to demand more as it is. I'm surprised that Barnwell didn't get into, well, if the Vikings would have lost more games, it would have been, nah. But I mean, the teams were going to have the leverage regardless. And, of course, that flies out the windows, like, because a lot of trade charts say that, hey, you can get to number 3 with 11-23. Ain't going to happen. It's going to be 11-23 and a future first-rounder, basically no matter what. And that's the cost of doing business. It is what it is. Blah, 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 blah. There was presumably no rush to get that first deal done with the Texans, and if the Vikings don't have a specific trade-up for a quarterback in the making, it's hard to see how this deal makes sense for them. But like we said, built in that nice floor for Kwesi. And plus, the whole thing about it, too, is that maybe teams didn't want to facilitate a hypothetical woulda, coulda, shoulda deal. Like maybe they wanted to see something tangible in the first place. And the Vikings were fine with that because, like we said, if it doesn't work out, still have 2 first-round picks. On top of that, if the Vikings are going to move up for a quarterback, why did they just give Sam Darnold a 1-year contract worth $10 million? Wait, that's the holdup? Sam Darnold? So first off, $10 million, it's not gigantic money. I mean, this team just burned $13 million on Marcus Davenport last year. Plus, you've seen the value of the quarterback position. And Darnold had options. I mean, Denver had, and stupid-ass Sean Payton had a hard-on for him, and so I'm sure the Vikings had to pay a little bit of a premium. But how come people aren't pissed and moaning about the Patriots paying Jabroni Brisket $8 million? It's like, oh, what does this mean for their quarterback position? No, it's ridiculous. I mean, the Vikings and Kwesi. I mean, Kwesi's coming from Wall Street. Like, he worked at hedge funds. They're talking about hedging their bets. They're talking about covering your exposure, covering your ass in this spot. And, hey, if the Vikings don't come away with a Tier 1 quarterback who's ready to go, you got Sam Darnold. And even if you do come away with a quarterback up at the top, if he's deemed not ready to go, or if you just want to take it nice and slow, you got Darnold. I don't see how Darnold there is a negative. Or, hey, the Vikings signed no one, and their starting quarterback penciled in right now is either Mullins or Jaron Hall. Then Barnwell would have criticized them for that. They might have wanted to take a bridge quarterback start season, but they more than doubled Darnold's compensation from a year ago, despite spending a majority on last year. So they doubled Darnold's salary as when Darnold was clearly brought in as QB3 behind Brock Purdy and Trey Lance at the time, and then Darnold beat out Trey Lance in training camp. That's it. That's the sticking point. Please, paying that premium only made much sense if they were planning on making Darnold their starter for 2024. Again, Darnold's like the 24th highest compensated quarterback in the league. Like, and also with the cap going up, it doesn't really move the needle. So that's a ridiculous point. Something's missing here to have all this make sense. If the Vikings are moving up for a quarterback, why are they giving other teams time to beat them to the punch or change the deal? Well, here's the thing too. Was anyone shocked? Like, all of a sudden, hey, the Vikings traded up to 23. Now, all of a sudden, are the Giants and the Broncos and the Raiders and the Steelers are like, oh my god, the Vikings the Vikings want a quarterback in this draft? No, that's stupid. That's idiocy. Of course, everyone knew that the Vikings were in on quarterback, so this doesn't really change. I mean, Barnwell, come on, you're better than this, man. It's like all of a sudden, ooh, it changes the game. Please. That's so stupid. Basically, Barnwell's beef with the Vikings is like, hey, trading up to 23 telegraphs that you want a quarterback. Everyone knew that you wanted a quarterback. Hey, paying Sam Darnold $10 million. But you paid him $10 million. I mean, this team paid Kirk Cousins $185 million, and plus they have $28.5 dead on the cap this year. And plus, the total compensation between $10 million this year with Darnold and a rookie, a highly drafted rookie, besides the signing bonus, ain't gonna be much. Ain't gonna be much contributed to the quarterback position. So, I overall, again, respect the hell out of Barnwell, but his contentions here are ridiculous. Like, everyone knew that the Vikings were in on quarterback, but the trade with the Texans just makes things even more tangible, which, frankly, helps their bargaining position with moving on up. And, yeah, it's going to be expensive. It was going to be expensive in the first place. I don't think that the leverage has changed. The calculus has not changed. And also, Darnold is a non-factor in all of this, so kind of ridiculous. But, again, it's interesting because it's it's great to see everyone's takes on what Kwesi's been doing. But I think the Vikings are in absolutely beautiful shape, and the Vikings are going to go up and get their guy. And hey, guess what? If a deal falls through, still got 2 first-round picks. Can take your choice of probably the top-tier cornerbacks or the edge rushers or defensive interiors, and you could probably swing around and get your quarterback at 23 or vice versa. Lots of flexibility for the Vikings. I see zero downside on what exactly is going to be going on. And hell, maybe they'll trade up to 1. Anyways, your thoughts are thoughts. Bill Barnwell criticizes the Vikings trade. Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something on the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.